Hi, this is Mike, WB4HUC, and I haven't posted anything in a while. Uh, I guess I kind of ran out of things to say. But this week, I started work on a little project to uh, to modify a couple of programs I'd written a couple of years ago. So, and I think I have videos on these two programs, but I wrote a couple of programs, one to monitor my Elecraft tuner, one to monitor the Elecraft amplifier. And what it does is it displays a list of parameters that I want to keep up with. And when they change, the monitor program displays the changes in real time. I have the tuner and the amplifier sitting off to the side, off to the left. So without the programs, if something happened, I'd have to turn my head and look. And we know how exhausting it is to turn your head. So I'm of the school work lazier, not work harder. So I wrote the two little programs so I can have them on the computer screen since I use the computer for so much stuff anyway. And so I can just look straight ahead at my computer screen and I can see the LCD display of the radio, which the radio is also sitting in front of me. I can see it live or on the screen. Logging program, the control panel for my watt meter, and then the two monitor programs. So, but I did some enhancements to the monitor programs. That's what I want to talk about. So let's start up the newest version of these. So one is for the tuner. So I'm going to double click here and we're going to get this little window. And I got to go through my obsessive compulsive thing where I have to have everything squared off. So the tuner is on COM port 2 on my computer. And these are the parameters that get monitored, okay? And then the amplifier is over here, same thing. So I'm just going to bring him over here. Try not to spend too much time messing around with this. I got a problem. Good enough. I need to see somebody. Anyway, all right, we're going to leave that there. And the COM port number for the amplifier is 5. Same thing. Everything's on 6 meters. So these are the programs I wrote a couple of years ago. This week I made some changes. I put the little heading line here in the top because this gets hard to read sometimes. So this one's the one that's selected. This one gets so hard to read. So I just put this in here. And then I added the ability to issue commands to the tuner and to the amp from these programs. And that's really what I want to talk about. So if we do the tuner first, there are only 3 commands, but you can change the mode of the tuner. You can put him in automatic mode, manual mode, or bypass, and you can change the tuner has a 3-position antenna switch. You can change the antenna 1, antenna 2, antenna 3. So to get into command mode, type the letter C, which you're not going to see any indication of that here, but type the letter C and you get the command prompt. Now you can enter your commands, and they're 1 or 2 letter commands. So if I want to put the well, they're all 2 letter commands. So if I want to put the mode into automatic, I would say M for mode, A for automatic, press the enter key, and now the tuner's in automatic mode. And I can verify that if I turn my head and look at the front of the tuner. The amp and tuner are sitting off to the side, not in front of me. So this is all helpful for me. And I can put the tuner in bypass, and then I can go back to manual mode, which is where it stays most of the time. And then the antenna, my 05 ground plane antenna is on position 1 of the antenna switch, but I can also go to antenna 2 which is my dummy load. And then I can go to antenna 3, which is actually unused right now. Or I can go back to antenna 1, which is where I want to stay. And then you can see as I make the changes, they show up here. The thing that I changed will flash green to show you that it changed, and then it'll go back to white. So that's pretty much it. Just to enter, and then to exit the command mode, you type in the letter X, and you're back to where you were. The amplifier is the same way. We can put the amplifier into operator standby mode, and we can change bands. So again, not a big selection of commands, but the ones that are useful to me. So same thing, enter the letter C, go into command mode, and then the amp is in standby. I can type the letter O for operate, and you can see down here you saw the indication that the amp is in operate mode. And you would see this indication whether these programs are running or not. This is direct communication between the radio and the amplifier through two 15-pin serial cables. So one 15-pin serial, accessory cable, I should say. One 15-pin cable goes from the radio to the tuner. The other 15-pin cable goes from the tuner to the amplifier. And so it daisy chains these pieces of equipment together. So when something changes in the radio, if it affects the amp or the tuner, that change gets communicated, and the amp and the tuner will change. So you see that. So if we go back up here, and we want to put the amp back in standby mode, we'll type the letter S, and now we're in standby mode. If you want to change bands, this will be interesting. So everything shows 6 meters, right, in the frequency, and 6 meters and 6 meters down here in my logging program. So let's go to 80 meters. Type the word B for band, and then 80 for 80. Press the enter key. And you can see a whole bunch of stuff flashed over here. But we're on 80 meters, we're on 80 meters, we're on 3745 kilohertz, 3745, 3745. So the other thing that will happen is the amplifier has band buttons on it, and if I push one of the band buttons on the amplifier, it tells the radio to change bands, and then I suppose the radio turns around and notifies the tuner that we've changed bands and frequencies. I don't know the innards of how the communication between the radio and the amp and the tuner work, but that would happen even without either one of these programs, because that's direct communication between the radio and those other two pieces of equipment. So if we want to go back to 20 meters, B20, we can go to any band really. So there's 60 meters. And then we can go to 20 meters, which is where we're going to go back to. And we're all back to 20 meters. And then again, to exit command mode, we type in an X. And now we're back to here. So that's it. Just some changes I made to these two programs, and they're very useful to me. Like I said, I can keep my eyes forward on what's happening with the radio, what's happening with the amp and tuner without having to turn my head sideways to look at them. For me, they're very handy. So, and they're not complicated. Each of these programs is about somewhere between 300 and 350 lines of code. So they're not large programs, and that includes a lot of comments. I put a lot of comments in my code. So they're pretty small. And they're written in a language called BBC Basic. Now, BBC Basic was the version of BASIC that was run in the BBC microcomputers that appeared in Great Britain in the 1980s. Well, the BBC microcomputer is long gone, but the language has stuck around, and it's been enhanced and updated as time went on. And it'll do a lot of stuff. It can run as an interpreted language, or it can run as a compiled language. So what I did with these two, once I got them finished, I compiled them and created exe files. So if we go over here, properties, so you can see this is executing. This is in Windows, and it's an exe file, not a source code file that then gets interpreted. So that's how I'm doing these. That way, if you need to send them to somebody, you can just send them the exe file. They don't need the interpreter. They don't need to do anything other than just execute it. Assuming they have the amp and the tuner, assuming they're connected to the computer through the serial ports on the amp and the tuner. I don't use USB for serial communications. I've got 4 9-pin RS-232 ports on my computer, and each of these devices, the amp and the tuner, connect up to one of those 9-pin ports on the computer. And, well, I say that. I may take... No, I think they are. I was trying to think that... I was thinking the tuner might be going into a USB port, but I don't think it does. I've got wires coming out the yin-yang in here, and I don't keep track of them all. But anyway, and the serial ports on the amp and the tuner are freed up because I use the accessory cables to connect all three up. So there you go. So that's about all I have to say about this. Everything's working. So far, no glitches, no errors, no bugs, nothing. I'm very happy with these two, even though they're sort of simple. They do the job that I wanted them to do. And that's all this was. Is just an exercise into what did I want. They're not meant for, broad distribution to everybody. I'm not going to sell them. I'm not going to, I just wrote them for me, but I wanted to show them. And so there you go. Anyway, I guess that's the end of this. As always, thank you for watching. And I'll be back hopefully soon. I've got another project in the back of my mind I need to start on next week. So if that looks like it's going to work, and as it progresses, I'll probably put updates out. It's another software project, but again, it's useful to me, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, thanks for watching.